brands. Our speaker today will be Howard Koval. Howard Koval is the co-founder and EVP of Strategy and Business Development here at TravelSpike. He spent more than 30 years at the intersection of television, advertising, and travel marketing. He began his career in traditional TV and advertising before moving into the internet space in the early 90s, where he was helping brands navigate the shift toward digital personalization and data-driven marketing long before it became standard. The most recent 25 years, he has focused specifically on travel, helping destinations, hotels, airlines, and tourism brands connect smarter with travelers and drive stronger performance. He's a subject matter not only in CTV, but he's an expert in performance CTV for travel brands. And today he will help us explain how to use technology, audience intelligence, and performance CTV to drive measurable outcomes, not just awareness, but actual bookings.
Thanks, Tremonte. Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us. I'm excited to talk about performance connected television, and it actually happens to be one of my favorite subject matters. As Dro said, I've been in the business for quite a while, and I've seen the seismic shift from, back in the broadcast and cable days all the way through where things are at today with connected television, and have a pretty good handle on where things are actually going to be headed. Just to start off real quick, most of you guys here today probably know us, some form of friend or family, past client, current client, so on and so forth. But for those of you who don't, I'll spend a second just explaining what TravelSpike is. Basically, for the past 24, 25 years, we've been a digital marketing and digital media solutions provider that is exclusively focused on the travel, tourism, and hospitality space. We've got a number of products that really kind of fill the full funnel. And we've got, top of the funnel products that'll drive branding and awareness, and middle of the funnels that'll increase consideration, interest, and intent, and all the way at the bottom of the funnel, we can talk about performance and conversion. Tremonte. There we go. It wouldn't be proper to talk about connected TV and where it's at today without giving a little bit of historical background, a little bit about where things came from and kind of where they're at today. As we all know, without getting too much into the history books, there was a time when broadcast would actually serve 92 to 95% of the audience, and everything else was kind of out there. Then really roll the clocks forward into like the 80s, there was the whole proliferation of cable television, the introduction of the VCR, and actually Fox would be the fourth network from being the primary three: ABC, NBC, and CBS. And that started to actually have, a monumental change in broadcast, and it was a broadcast versus cable thing. Since then, we can say that streaming is really becoming the number one platform, as it's been growing at crazy trending in 71%, while cable's actually declining at 39%. But I guess the big picture here is that we are literally, if not at, but within, a couple months or so, we will actually hit the 50% threshold, where more than 50% of the viewing time will be on streaming versus linear, which is cable and broadcast. And that's fairly significant, of course, because with that comes the ad dollars. But, real quick, where things are at kind of today, 90% of all adults 18 to 49 are watching streaming. And what's even more important about that is that 55% of those adults are streaming only. So they're cord cutters. Doesn't matter if a brand is spending $100 million on linear, you're just not going to reach those 55% of people because they're cord cutters. Another interesting factoid is that when you have a household where they have a preference of either going with streaming or linear, 67% of the people would prefer to be on linear. And if that's really like a big ticket event, like the Super Bowl or some other cultural, emotional type of event, they will, that number increases to 90%. And, again, this is where, the dollars will follow, where they're right now, the amount of dollars versus the audience share is not yet proportionate, but it's getting there. So I guess to just organize what's happening here, I mean, Dramonte and I just really printed this out with ChatGPT 5 minutes before the call, so hopefully it flows well. But no, I'm just kidding. That's a joke, but you never know. Anyway, so we're going to talk about Performance CTV for travel brands. We're going to talk about audience and targeting strategy. We'll talk about reporting and measurement, and then we can talk about some other extensions to CTV where we see major growth and transformation. And predominantly that's in the live sports arena, and some other technical innovations that we could touch upon as we get to further slides. So this is one of my favorite lines out there. All CTV is not created equal. Again, people are starting to get more clarity on the differences between CTV and OTT. And, in the very beginning, everyone thought OTT was CTV and CTV was OTT, but it's really not. There's some really big differences. Primarily, CTV is, on the large screen. It's, living room quality programming. It's, top tier networks. It's, unskippable inventory, things of that nature, where OTT starts getting into, some of the other smaller devices, some short form content, some UGC, user generated content, and actually skippable inventory. And everybody knows what skippable inventory is. It's like when you're watching, a video on YouTube, everyone's pretty much staring at the skip ad button, waiting for the countdown, and then eventually they're going to skip the ad. But real true performance CTV is 100% non-skippable inventory. So your story is going to be told, your visuals are going to be seen, and that's actually a big part of the story here as well. So to dive in a little bit deeper, we talked about no short form, no UGC. That's typically not brand friendly or anything like that, or not 100% guaranteed brand friendly. The real deal CTV is all about long form, episodic, sports, news, movies, series, things of that nature. And most recently, we've added in our offering Hulu inventory, and Netflix is like the newcomer into the space. But what's most important is that it's not really about just the serving of the impression, the completion of the video. In order for it to be true performance CTV, it's got to be integrated into a very robust platform underneath it, where you're actually going to be able to track everything from a CTV impression all the way to on-site conversions, all the way through actually in-destination visitation. In terms of best practices, it's almost like turning a regular video spot into a direct response commercial. Okay, where you want to have certain of your branding elements visible for the entire duration of the commercial, and that's going to include your logo. It's going to include your URL. It's going to include a call to action, quite possibly a QR code to kind of drive engagement for the very, very interested people and the high intent people. But also in terms of best practices, we've actually seen a lot of success with the branding and awareness piece, leveraging your 30-second creative, and for retargeting purposes to bring people back into your site. We would recommend using a 15-second video asset. Another element that we find useful and valuable, although it might not be the entire tentpole of the campaign, but it does allow for instant engagement, where we all know that most of CTV is not clickable. Little by little, some is becoming more clickable, but for the most part, the big screen TV and CTV, it's not clickable. So we encourage the use of QR codes. And again, not just a QR code for the sake of a QR code, but using a dynamic QR code, I think is a very much of kind of a, a little bit of a game changer, because you have so much more creative flexibility. You've got the ability to integrate other things and multiple elements, but also on the back end in terms of like data capture, and what you could do with that data. That all plays into like what a dynamic QR code is all about. And instead of going to a landing page or a home page, the QR code, a dynamic QR code, could actually pull up. Most of you guys know that we have interactive conversational ads that we could actually have the QR code within a CTV spot, pull up a full screen interactive mobile handheld conversation that will allow you to get into some personalization and allow people to have more choices. Do you want to see a video? You want to download the brochure? So on and so forth. We could do data capture. There's so many things, but that's really the essence of a dynamic QR code versus a static QR code. So, again, the big promise, going back to my early days in TV, it's always been about, chasing addressability or chasing interactivity. And that's been going on for 30 years and all that stuff. And one of my first internet startups, I had my CTO actually say to me, Howard, interactive TV is not going to come to the TV. It's going to come to the PC, and that's called the internet. And at that time, it was like 1992, not to date myself, but no one even knew what the internet was. But again, the vision for people that knew that the internet was going to change the way actually people would interact and consume television. We're here today. It's happening. So we have the power of sight, sound, and motion mixed with, the digital precision of slicing and dicing audiences, a gazillion different ways, and getting very, very close and personal with that audience. With generative AI, there's lots of leaps and advancements with audience targeting. One of the most exciting things that I've seen is in predictive audiences, where the artificial intelligence can actually predict, who your next customer is going to be, who your next visitor is going to be, based on browsing habits, search habits, purchase behaviors, life stages, things of that nature, where, typical third-party behavioral and contextual targeting could never deliver that level of granularity and precision. At TravelSpike, we also have an additional technology layer, which we call Travelogic, and that basically helps us, set up campaigns, build audiences, pre-optimize so there's no wasted impressions, and then optimize throughout the campaign. That's more of an additive type of a situation, but it will certainly enhance performance and drive further cost efficiencies. Again, tofu bofu, that's one of Joe's favorite pieces of the presentation here. But basically, we could focus, or an advertiser can focus on top of the funnel to drive that branding and awareness, or you could focus solely on the bottom of the funnel and look to really, get into reaching and engaging with the highest intent individuals out there, as it would relate to your destination, your competition's destination, if you're going to be looking at conquesting, so on and so forth. So basically, CTV has the capability to kind of be everything. Everyone always gets the branding and awareness. That's a big part of TV. But as you go down through further into the funnel and really look to focus on high intent or high intent only, that's truly bottom of the funnel. And the AI will always prioritize the highest intent available. And that just improves over time too, with as the algorithm runs. It recognizes success and patterns and so on and so forth. Another really effective way to use connected TV would be ingesting of your CRM, and that will allow you to run different types of campaign strategies, whether it's bring them back, or if you want to use your CRM to exclude past visitors or past customers and just focus on net new. That's possible as well. And it's just about, creating efficiencies and just being more focused and more targeted and creating different types of campaigns. And what's really super important with all this is testing, 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 always very important. So, as it relates to audience activation, I would have to say that one of the most important things is to be clear with your primary KPI. There's lots of KPIs in this business, and a lot of them are soft, but they're still important. They're still, measurable. But again, everything from the creative all the way through the actual audience development, all the way through the reporting, it's really important to understand exactly, how you're trying to move the bar. What is the key and number one performance indicator that we're looking to kind of drive, and that just helps with clarity, and even on the back end with reporting and efficiencies and so on and so forth. As I touched upon, creative optimization is a big part of this too. Eventually, similar to some display tactics, you'll be able to, dynamically customize your CTV creative based on the impression being served. We're not there yet, but that would just be another form of dynamic creative optimization. But even so, if you're looking to reach families, you should have a family-oriented spot. If you're, nothing rocket science on that level, but that's really the beauty of CTV, is that it really can get super granular. So, the one-size-fits-all strategy doesn't necessarily provide best practices. Getting back to what we're saying here, 30 for prospecting, 15-second for retargeting. That's pretty straightforward. As far as the predictive audiences, I can't really emphasize that artificial intelligence is way better than 100 human beings in terms of the way they can actually aggregate data, collect data, interpret data, make decisions, so on and so forth. That when you're actually letting the generative AI analyze who your next customer is going to be, there's a lot more efficiency and effectiveness there. Another tactic that should not ever be left alone is retargeting, because retargeting will drive performance. And here, with CTV, it's not like you have to retarget everyone. It's that you could actually, come up with a strategy, and you want to retarget people that spent X amount of time on your site. You want to retarget people that, looked at a particular product page. You want to retarget people that abandoned shopping carts. You want to retarget people that looked at 2+ page views, things of that nature, just again, to be, cost effective. There's a lot of invalid traffic out there. People come and go. A lot of web traffic. You don't need to retarget someone that looked at your web page for 2 seconds. So again, we believe that rule-based retargeting is the way to go. In terms of like the CRM to re-engage past customers, it's not just on CTV, but to me, it would be more of a omni-channel activation, where if you're really looking to leverage CRM, you would do that, through CTV and display and other tactics, whether it's email, which we've done before in the past as well. In terms of measurement, it's not just the vanity metrics that you're chasing. It's really the full capability of connected television and digital media. It's about the ability to track from CTV impression to on-site conversions, all the way through physical visitation. And that's really the ultimate KPI in our book, is physical visitation. So yeah, the granularity of reporting is key. Lots of complaints that I've heard over the last several years is a lack of transparency and a lack of visibility in lots that is happening behind the scenes, and that's whether or not a platform is capable of that granularity, or if it's just a vendor's business practices. It's really hard to determine what the reason is, but ideally and technically, it's completely possible to slice and dice every single CTV impression by geography down to like the city level. We're working on trying to even get it closer down to the zip code level. But of course, network, publisher, creative, day part, day of week, the various audience segments that we have set up or you would have set up, and even, of course, like first touch and last touch attribution. Because again, the power of TV goes far beyond like the instant click. It's all about branding and recall, and then driving that performance and conversion. So we're our solution. We're actually able to show you both first touch and last touch. And typically, the clients would see last touch in their analytics platform, especially if it's Google Analytics, if it's GA4. That's really what you're seeing. But there's other multi-touch attribution platforms that are out there that will show you the full funnel effect of your media spend. So I kind of touched upon a couple of these other things right here, right now, that we're sharing the slide with, but we can also show path to conversion. You want to know how CTV is actually enhancing the performance of your other paid media channels, which really speaks to the halo effect. Everyone knows that TV has a halo effect. Sight, sound, and motion is a very powerful mix. So not only is the CTV driving it, but the CTV exposure is actually going to increase your search effectiveness. It's going to increase your social media effectiveness. And quite possibly, I would say that it's going to really increase the effect of all paid media, all marketing touch points, just because of the recall aspect. In terms of measurement, again, it's funny, measurement really needs to be measurement, and I'm talking about deep measurement, not just vanity level measurement. It's really about what's happening from the CTV impression all the way through the ultimate KPI, which we mentioned before, which is actually people showing up. So we could actually break that down and provide insights and analytics and reporting from CTV impression all the way through visitation. This slide really is kind of just supporting, the introduction of generative AI predictive audiences versus the typical third-party behavioral and contextual targeting. We've seen, 6 times the engagement. It's really more in the form of website visitation. 2 times the conversions, again, driving that high intent, high value, high quality visit and actually having them convert. And again, because of the efficiencies in targeting and getting in front of people that are really interested, that we've seen 50% lower cost of acquisition. And that really results net that it's a bold position to take, but it all makes sense. And I've seen it time and time again, is that, we are striving to be number one versus all your other paid media in terms of driving that high quality, high value website visit. So now we can shift gears into like one of the big growth areas. I mean, CTV live sports. Not only is it growing within CTV and more inventories becoming available, but just sports as a category is kind of like blowing up. And I don't think we've ever seen more and more new sports coming onto the scene, new TV deals, all that type of stuff. But CTV is always, live sports has always been a mainstay in terms of reach and effectiveness, and playing off of excitement and fandom and passionate, audiences and so on and so forth. But with the fragmentation of CTV, you have to be careful when you're buying live sports. Basically, if you happen to be buying YouTube, for that example, you're reaching 10 million people that would be subscribers for YouTube TV, as opposed to reaching 99% of the television households in the country that have streaming capabilities. But in terms of TravelSpike's relatively new sports offering. It's any team, any sport, any league, any game, any market at unmatchable reach and scale. And really, it's an aggregated offering across all the touch points. That would include even Netflix if they're having live sports, to Amazon, to all the apps and networks, including the ESPNs and Fox Sports and so on and so forth, and YouTube as well. But what's really interesting here, stat wise, hopefully you guys could read it, but sports fans are 42% more likely to be influenced by brands that are advertising in their sports. There's also a 3 times purchase intent increase when aligned with emotional and cultural moments, and that also drives significantly increased brand recall. Another, I guess, additionally speaking to a best practice implementation about how to build a live sports program, it would also include, the second screen, which, as we all know, everyone has their cell phones and laptops and their tablets right next to them while they're watching TV. But basically, I would say the spectator is more involved with their second screen in sports than any other programming genre. And when we say second screen takeovers, basically, when there's what would be considered a sports moment, a goal, a turnover, something iconic that happened in the game, that we actually could kind of trigger the second screen experience, where all of a sudden, people are, on their mobile phone looking for replays, looking for stats, posting stuff on social media, whatever it might be. It's that whole second screen experience, and we have the capability of doing a second screen takeover, similar to what we would call our whitelist for our audience purposes. That in the sports world, we have access to a fan activation network, and that fan activation network is really where people with the second screens are going immediately after something big happens. So we're able to reach them not only in the game, but we also can reach them around the game. And similarly to like the digital out of home, in game is in game, but what happens before and after the game? And I would say a lot, because people are getting there and then ultimately people are leaving. But with our second screen takeover, we can also do a digital out of home implementation, where we can actually reach people at airports, transportation hubs like bus stations and train stations, and light rails, and the sports venues themselves, and even on seatback placements in the ride shares like Uber and Lyft, things of that nature, where you can actually play on the excitement before, during, and after the game. And the same would apply to social. We can actually extend it with some pretty cool things, using those sport moment triggers that would actually provide access and interactivity within social integrations when people are going there based on the sport to participate in their fandom. So as we kind of get into like the wrap up, we can talk a little bit about like what's kind of the next frontier of CTV. One of the latest, and it's not brand new, but it's pretty new, is pause ads. That's interesting because when someone puts the ad, when someone puts their TV show on pause and they need to run to the bathroom, or they actually want to search something, they want to search about your destination, they'll put this TV show on pause. The ad comes up and holds until they actually unpause it and go back to the programming. But at the end of the day, that's an advancement, and it's pretty cool. Interactive CTV ads, they're starting to come around. There's the ability to, I guess, deploy them now, but to me, it's all about reach and scale. But if you want to do interactive TV, the possibilities there would be great for learning, great for experimentation. But if you really want to kind of move the bar on numbers and performance and delivery and visitation and all that stuff, again, interactive CTV ads are not there yet, but they're coming on fast and soon. Another tactic that would be kind of a value add from straight up CTV impressions is that now CTV is headed towards the direction of fixed position programming, where you could actually buy programs. And we're highlighting White Lotus because of the impact that it had on travel and tourism, and Game of Thrones similarly. But there's also big ticket, cultural type events that draw large audiences and so on and so forth, outside of sports and, outside of some of these other, cultural things, but things of the nature of the Academy Award shows and Grammys and the Country Music Awards, the Emmys, People's Choice, things of that nature. You also have the ability to kind of, participate in that kind of cultural stuff. Of course, we're just getting started and scratching the surface with AI. So AI is actually optimizing AI, and AI is recreating and enhancing AI. So we're going to see advancement move at like light speed. But as that relates to above and beyond the predictive audiences and things of that nature, it's going to be able to predict, where the most response and the most traction is coming from devices and all types of stuff, and it could be even zip codes and so on and so forth, where it's really going to take the front seat in terms of campaign optimization. And the same thing it doesn't create the effectiveness and efficiencies on the front end in targeting, it's really going to be driving everything to performance to the nth degree. And I would have to imagine that just like we're seeing 6 times the engagement on the front end, once AI really starts creeping deep into the optimization process, you're going to see numbers increase on that level too, from the back end and the optimization side of things.
Okay. Now I'll take the opportunity to read some questions that were sent in early, and then actually I've got 2 more from some late registers that I think are pretty good for you, Howard. So we'll start off with the first question. Can you do niche sports like pickleball?
Yeah, I mean, of course. So we said before, it's like any sport and any league, any team, any market, any game, stuff like that. But it really comes down to like, sports as a platform, and it's not just Thursday night football, the 8 games that Amazon might have. It's really all sports and any sport. The only caveat, the only rule is that if it's not on TV, we can't insert commercials on it. So as long as it's a televised sporting event, we can do it. And yes, we really have, gotten requests for pickleball. I mean, pickleball is the fastest growing sport ever, and destinations are really focused and fixating on their pickleball capabilities and experiences, and that like kind of spins out into like pickleball tournaments. And while there's not hours and hours and hours and numbers and numbers and numbers of pickleball programming, there certainly is, and there's certainly a pretty loyal interest group behind that.
Awesome. And I know this one isn't on screen. It's one of the late registers, but I want to stay on the idea of sports for now. Their question was, can we do CTV ad placements in playoff games?
For sure. For sure. We can do, again, if the game is on TV and if the game is not sold out, then we could insert commercials. And just to, use real examples, I mean, if it's the NHL playoffs that's happening now, we can do playoff only. If it's, the Super Bowl, I mean, it's the ultimate playoff. Yeah, we can insert in Super Bowl only impressions. As the World Cup is coming upon us, yeah, we could do what would be considered like run of tournament, or you could do finals only. Again, inventory permitting, but you can actually say, we just want to place 10 million impressions in X markets during the finals. And, of course, we'll have to clear that, but it's fully capable of that.
Okay, awesome. Now we'll shift to that second bubble right there. I know you've already talked about this, a couple slides up, but this was another pre-asked question. So if you want to dive a little deeper, feel free.
Yeah.
What can a dynamic QR code actually do?
Yeah, I mean, so it's just more fun than a static QR code, first and foremost. I mean, if someone's going to take the effort and scan a QR code, you should make sure that the effort is rewarded properly. But it's really about flexibility and creativity, and on the back end, knowing who scanned and where they scanned from, down to the zip code level. And we can even build like addressable audiences based on people that have scanned your QR code over time. So there's lots of things that we can do. It's not just something that looks like a postage stamp that you would stick on a commercial in the last 5 seconds. It's something that really needs to be part of a strategy. And again, the call to action should be like, scan the code for dot 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 dot. If it's scan the code to win $1 million, you're probably going to get a lot more people scanning. But if it's like scan the code to, enter to win, you'll get a bunch. If you say scan the code to see our brochure, and right there on the second screen, they're going to scan the code, and it's not like linking to a page and you could actually serve the brochure into a full screen mobile experience right from the QR code, right when they hit the pause ad, so on and so forth. So, it's just about what you can do with a dynamic QR code. And to me, it's more than just sending someone to a landing page. That was, QR code 1.0. So we're probably at like 3.0 in today's world.
Awesome, awesome. And this last question we've touched on maybe 2 or 3 times throughout here, so I'm gonna do another quick pivot. We had another late register question that actually asked about CTV viewability. Is it guaranteed?
I mean, it's in its purest environment, it's guaranteed. When you start falling off into, lower, you know, lower level offerings that would fall more into like the OTT, type of environment, then it would be less so. But if it's really premium performance CTV or premium CTV, yeah, I mean, you're not going to guarantee 100%, completion rates, but the viewability will be 100%. But it's about completion rates. But again, given the right audience targeting mechanism, and having the right creative that's going to resonate and engage with them, that you could pretty much guarantee 98, 99%, completion rate with 100% viewability.
Where do you think that extra 1 to 2%? I'm gonna make their follow-up question for them. But where do you think that extra 1 to 2% is going? Can we control that?
Of course not. I mean, it's they're going to the bathroom, they're changing a channel, they're going to the refrigerator, they're turning their TV off, so that's really what happens. I mean, it's non-skippable inventory. So at the end of the day, theoretically, when they turn the TV back on, they're going to be served the same impression. That's really what's going to happen. But that's the only reason why the completion rate would be 1 to 2%, not completed or incompleted.
Okay, makes sense. And then if you want, you can touch on this last one on the screen here. What KPIs define a successful campaign?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. At the end of the day, um, like I said, I'm surprised how some companies are out there providing little or no visibility or transparency into the CTV, and it's very, very broad stroke general vanity metrics, which I would call them, which is CPMs, impressions and completion rates. Then we kind of go down into like a more robust, granular offering of, tracking what's happening and things that where response is coming from, and what the costs associated are, so on and so forth. But in my book, there's really two things that matter, and one is really the website visit, and is it high quality, is it high value. That's the first thing that shows you that you're getting your message in front of the right audience. Again, not to blow our own whistle, but a lot of what we share and send to our clients' websites, that traffic is forget about being number one in paid media or compared to the other paid media channels. It's really very close, if not at or above even their Google organic traffic, which is a good barometer for what someone really interested in that did a search that ended up on your site, and how long are they staying there and what are they doing. The fact of the matter is that if we could be at that level with organic, whether it's Bing organic or Google organic, and here come the answer engines like ChatGPT and Claude and Perplexity and all those guys, if we're able to deliver that from a CTV perspective, then that would be a very strong KPI. But at the end of the day, it's about are people really coming to your destination? They could spend 10 minutes on your website and they may never come visit you. So at the end of the day, not only do we want to drive quality website visits, but we want to make sure that we're driving people into your destination.
Awesome. Okay. Well, I want to thank you, Howard, for sitting here, educating us, and having this conversation with us. For those who want, the recording will automatically be sent, and you can go ahead and share it from there. We'll also put it on YouTube as well. Howard, is there anything else you'd like to say before we end this out?
Just thank you very much for your time. I enjoy educating people on this and other things, media and travel related. So if you hit us up, we'll be glad to set aside some time and we can speak specifics to you and your clients' needs.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Howard. And we'll give everybody this time back on their calendar and hope everyone has a good day.
Thanks.